Thank you, Dave Dugo, for asking me to contribute to this COVID-19 crisis planning. My name is Bruce Firestone. To put this in perspective, I looked back at industrial production in the 1930s during the Great Depression, and industrial production declined by over 40% in Canada, Germany, and the United States. And it was a very, very difficult time. It's called the Great Depression. This might be worse. In the first 3 months of 2020, China's GDP looks to have decreased by 40%. So in the Great Depression, it took about 4 years for industrial production to drop by 40%. It happened in China in 3 months. And I think Canada can expect similar results. It will take us probably at least 3 months to get on top of COVID-19, and we can expect a 40% decline in GDP. But I really believe that Canada is up to the job. Look at what our parents and grandparents coped with: the Great War, Spanish flu, which killed 25 million people in 1919, the Great Depression, World War II, the Korean War, and the Cold War. We can do it. Some of the things that we might reach out to help each other with is a tenant rescue package. I actually did this in the 1980s when I ran a bigger portfolio in both commercial and residential. And on a case-by-case basis, we allowed our tenants who were in trouble to decrease rent by half or more for a period of typically 3 months, followed by 6 to 9 months of higher payments to catch up. We rescued about 50% of our tenants that way. In addition to that, it seemed to establish us as a good landlord. We had more tenants, better tenants in some ways, certainly staying longer, less tenant churn. And as everyone knows on this call, landlords who have tenants that stay longer, they have less make-ready costs, obviously less vacancies, and it's one of the keys to long-term portfolio profitability. I'd like to give a shout out to Colonnade Bridgeport. It's a local firm in Ottawa. One of my clients, she opened recently a very, very modern dental practice. I think she spent about $2 million on her fit up. And obviously the Ontario Dental Association asked all dentists across Ontario to close. She has no income. She turned to her landlord, Colonnade Bridgeport, and they said, no problem, full rent deferral until the crisis passes. On the right here, you'll see a picture of one of my kids. I have 5 of them. This is Jessica, my youngest. She and her boyfriend are both servers. They have no income. And Mr. Trudeau, our Prime Minister, has announced a large amount of money to help people like Jessica. So try and encourage your tenants to take advantage of what's out there to help them. But you have to balance your risks too if you're a landlord. So you may have to go to some of your banks and lenders and ask them to defer your mortgage payments, either half or all deferral. The other thing I don't have to tell you to do, but I think it's a good thing to do right now, is to stock up on cash. This is a Toronto-based company, I think, called Prompt Financial, and if you own a home, they'll put a $40,000 cash in your bank account in 3 or 4 business days. It's not cheap money. It's 8.99%, and there's some fees too, but it is at least a source of cash. Many of you know, I'm sure all of you know about home equity lines of credit, home trust, and many other lenders do that. And again, stock up on cash. It's a great time to use your mortgage broker. I have 3 or 4 mortgage brokers who I turn to. I call them my CFOs, my chief financial officers, and they can certainly help you with your home equity line of credit or your Prompt Financial or something like that. It's time to freeze your spending and preserve cash. So if you can't pay your suppliers, I encourage you strongly to call them. And obviously you are allowed, I think now, the Prime Minister announced to defer your tax payments. So you don't have to call the tax folks, but you do have to call your suppliers and at least discuss it with them. What will the future bring? No one really knows. It is unprecedented. I don't recall any time since the Industrial Revolution where we've had a 40% decrease in GDP in 3 or 4 months. But I think that there are significant changes coming. Barcelona has announced its vision is to become totally self-sufficient by 2050, and I think that's probably the direction all of our cities should move in. Self-sufficient in energy, food, waste, textiles, clothing, manufactured goods, medicines. They're even going to have their own currency. Just in case you're wondering, we do have some local currencies to encourage buy local, the Calgary dollar, the Kawartha loon. This is a useful thing to do, I believe. It's time to make our nation and our cities more resilient and self-sufficient. This is a photograph I took in a small village called Pinhal in Portugal, where people do a lot of backyard homesteading. So grow local. I think we can do more for ourselves. And summer is coming, and that's a good thing. Something else that I think the Prime Minister should consider would be now to implement a universal basic income. I think that makes a lot of sense and will provide us with more resiliency across Canada in the future. Some other things that landlords can do, there's a saying, God only helps those who help themselves. Well, landlords can help themselves and their community become more resilient. How is that? Add more basement apartments, more side yard apartments, coach houses. You see one here that I've designed for my backyard. And then add some workshops and maker spaces, micro suites, home offices, home micro retail, backyard storage sheds. It's all part of the FEHASH movement, which stands for Every Home a Job. I have been adding tech package. I know some of you follow me to all of our apartments, and you can imagine how important that is now for our tenants who can now work from home with all kinds of good technology. And I think we have to be very cognizant about not building any more office buildings that are just becoming, I think, outmoded. We should not have any office buildings that don't also allow people to live and work in the same building. This is part of what I call the FEJA movement, which is for every job, a home. The Bank of Canada has cut the overnight rate a few times, I think at least twice, and interest rates are dropping. And this is a possible buying opportunity for those of you who have some cash. In the next 6 to 18 months, it may be possible to do what some of my clients did in 2008, 9, and 10, which is buy properties at a good price. So that is a possibility. We need to be more humble about human frailties and capabilities, and we need to treat each other and the planet with more respect, in my opinion. I want to thank everybody for listening today. I want to wish everybody the best and be well. Thank you.